Yeah, sure.
Very good afternoon to all the viewers. Welcome back to another episode for BW People HR Voices. Today we're joined by Mr. Sunjoy Dhaawan, the Vice President Human Resources at DHL Express India. Mr. Sunjoy has over 25 years of experience working across Indian and MNC companies. At DHL, he's responsible for making HR a true strategic business partner by creating sustainable HR solutions, policies, and initiatives. He's led the company's entry as the best employer and was on the best employers list, top 20 in the country, for the last 5 years in a row. Prior to DHL, he served at Colgate Palmolive, Johnson Controls, Reliance Retail, and Otis Elevators. He's also a member of the Best Employers Club of GPTW, SHRM, and National HRD Network. Firstly, welcome, Mr. Sanjoy. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Happy to be here, Savi. Thank you.
So, for all the viewers, today we're going to discuss upon how women are changing the face of male-dominated industries. And by male-dominated industries, we mean mining industry, the manufacturing industry, supply chain, and also transportation. So, Mr. Sanjoy, let's start with understanding how can organizations approach gender representation at various levels of leadership, especially talking about the traditionally male dominated industries that I just mentioned. And how do you think the leaders can ensure equal access of opportunities for women?
Yeah, so that's a great question, actually. So, I don't think so. There is any industry where women are not challenging the roles that can be done by them in an equal manner as is being done by their male counterparts. But having said that, yes, the divide is slowly getting bridged, and it is getting bridged faster than we think. In fact, we have a saying at DHL Express in India, and I will predominantly talk about the logistics industry because I have a great visibility about this industry per se. So therefore, we say that, at DHL Express, that what gets measured gets done.
Right.
And therefore, companies must set very clear and measurable diversity and inclusion goals for themselves.
Right.
And hold themselves accountable for achieving them. Because this could include specific targets for the number of women in leadership positions and ensuring that the hiring process is fair across the organization.
Right.
And in fact, globally, we have a goal of achieving 30% women in senior management roles by 2025.
Right.
And in order for us to achieve that goal, it is vital that we invest in training and development programs that support women's career growth and also help them build the necessary skills that are required for them to succeed in leadership positions.
Right.
This could include mentorship programs, leadership development initiatives, and also training on unconscious bias and diversity and inclusion, which needs to be done for their male counterparts.
Right.
And that's very important. Companies must ensure that women are also paid fairly as compared to their male counterparts when they both have the same skill sets and experience.
Right.
And promoting flexibility in the workplace, including remote working options, having family-friendly policies can go a long way in fostering a better balance between work and family, and that will certainly help more women to stay in positions at higher levels in the organization. And therefore, we have actually prioritized it, a very open and diverse culture, where we try to recruit a large pool of talent. We have programs to keep women engaged and support them through their milestones so that we are able to retain our female employees.
Right. Very rightly said, some great initiatives by DHL. But as you mentioned about pay parity between men and women employees, at male-dominated industries, for factories or manufacturing units especially, there's always been a gap, even though there are certain guidelines on the wages that should be provided to men and women. But there is still a gap. So how do you think organizations can monitor and address those gender pay gaps, especially, in these industries?
There might be very few pay parity gaps, which might be available. At least, I can speak up for our own organization. But I think there is a lot that can be done consciously in this space, I feel. And HR leaders can certainly play a very important role. HR leaders should start by conducting a comprehensive analysis of their own organization's pay data,
Mm.
especially focusing on gender disparities. And this analysis, if they do properly, they will be able to cover, all job levels and functions within the organizations, and they should strive to, for pay transparency with
Right.
regards to each role within the organization, communicate more openly with employees about the pay structures, something that most organizations hesitate in doing that for
Mm.
reasons of their own. And I think investing in a culture that is performance based,
Mm.
with clear metrics and guidelines will ensure that there is fairness in decisions, and it will help promote a culture that actually values abilities and hard work rather
Mm.
than gender.
Right.
And despite that, if there are pay gaps which are identified, I think HR leaders should work with management and relevant stakeholders to adjust the compensation policies so that such disparities uh, can be addressed, and there should be equal pay for equal work which
Mm.
should get practiced. And it is important that these things are taken care of. At the same time, it is also important that the career progression and opportunities for development are transparent, and they are accessible to all employees irrespective of gender. They should encourage that there is a fair salary negotiation practices which are followed by their recruitment and talent management
I think
teams,
Moez has joined.
in order to ensure that the salary decisions
Mm.
are taken in a fair and and transparent manner. And if there are any unconscious biases that exist in the minds of any hiring managers, I think that needs to be addressed. So by developing and promoting pay practices that
Mm.
actively work towards breaking gender stereotypes is very, very important in order to ensure an equitable work environment for all employees, be it male or female, in the organization.
Definitely, I agree with you. So you mentioned, avoiding biases in the recruitment and hiring processes. So it's very important. So how do you think the HR leaders can ensure that the job descriptions that are made and the requirements that are asked for, they're designed to attract a diverse pool of candidates? How can leaders ensure that?
So, when it comes to recruitment and hiring programs, I think there is a lot that can be done, by the HR leaders within their HR teams. The HR leaders should carefully review job descriptions, to start with, to eliminate any gender bias, uh, any language bias, and ensure that the requirements are based on actual job needs rather than gender stereotypes to start with. They should conduct structured competency based interviews with standardized questions in order to focus on job related skills and qualifications, which will actually help in minimizing any subjective judgments many
Mm.
times that can lead to biases.
Yep.
And I feel this is an area which is very important and should be focused upon, and it gets often ignored.
Mm.
It may sound very basic, but I think if you start doing that, if organizations start doing this, it can actually help in eliminating a lot of recruitment related biases that you just talked about. And it's a very, very relevant question because implementing this skill based assessments and having skill-based tests to assess a candidate's ability is often found lacking in most organizations. They may do it for certain jobs, but they don't do it for most of the jobs.
Mm.
So therefore, that's very important. And you touched on a very important topic, Savi. And just to share with you, in fact, that we at DHL Express India, we have done a great deal in this space, and we have benefited
Mm.
from a shift in our mindset where we essentially say that anyone can do any job.
Right.
That's our
Especially
fundamental
when
thing.
we talk about the manual tasks, which have
Yes.
always been designed for men per se, but There has been a significant change in that as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you.
Right.
And just to add, I think we support female hiring. Where we have instituted a diversity tracker, and
Hmm.
this diversity tracker, through this tracker, we are able to identify the progress that we are making with our female candidates
Hmm.
through rounds of interview, through the recruitment process, and identify the white spots, which are making where we are making progress. At the same time, it gives us an idea where we need to improve.
Right.
And we've also introduced things, for example, wherein we say that in the panel there has to be one woman
Hmm.
always sitting when you are doing an interview. And some of these things are really helping us. We have introduced practices, for example, where we say that 30% of the CVs sent to all hiring managers should be female candidates. And so,
Okay.
therefore, working with our partners to be able to make sure that we have enough CVs in the pipeline so that our managers can actually see enough women uh, makes a lot of difference. Because unless they see enough number of female CVs or female candidates applying, they won't be able to make those decisions.
Right.
And so, therefore, these are some of the practices that we have implemented, which has actually helped us in bettering our own hiring ratios, and all of the above efforts that have actually resulted us in hiring 25% more female
Hmm.
candidates, both in 22 versus what we were doing previously. So
Right.
therefore, this is entirely, within the scope of the HR teams and HR leaders to be able to make sure that they take the lead on this particular topic and make some of these interventions.
I agree with you. So you mentioned creating a merit-based culture is very important today. So when we talk along the lines of learning and development initiatives, what role do you think does skill development and training play to break these stereotypes and unconscious biases that might be in minds of not only the leaders or the employers, but also in the minds of the colleagues that are working with women?
That's a great question, Savi. I think there are enough studies which are available to show that companies with diverse management teams have a nearly 20% increase in revenues as compared to their less diverse counterparts. You know, and um, I think uh, that's enough proof in the pudding to be able to demonstrate to people that there is enough energy that can be put behind these initiatives, be it training and development or be it any other support programs that organizations can initiate. We have a number of initiatives, and maybe I can share a few of them, which are specifically focused on some of these initiatives in particular. One
Sure.
is a Shift Up a Gear. We call it as a SWAG program. It's a leadership development program,
Hmm.
which is to inspire, connect, and develop all our female talents. It
Hmm.
is closely linked to our strategic goal of fostering diversity,
Hmm.
equity, and inclusion to
Okay.
enable women to grow into leadership positions at DHL Express.
Right.
And the aim of SWAG is to provide our female talents with individual support in their professional and personal development, expanding visibility through individually planned board member dialogues, participation in career workshops. We have a workshop called ADAPT, ADEPT, which stands for Accelerated Development of Employees' Potential and Talent. And
Hmm.
this is absolutely focused only on the female talents, to be able to mentor them, to be able to provide development opportunities to them, to be able to guide them when vacancies are available in different parts of the world for DHL. And the program is working beautifully because we are able to move more women, not only from one function to another, but also we are able to move women from within the countries as well as from one role to another. And how important the unconscious bias training is for all the people in the organization, because people uh, may not know that they are carrying these biases, and it is only when they go through this unconscious bias training
Mm.
they will realize that these are things that they are carrying, and because of which they are not able to make more inclusive or more equitable decisions pertaining to uh, hiring of people, especially women. And therefore this heightened awareness actually equips them to make more fair and objective decisions during the entire hiring process or during the promotion processes that we have within the organization. So a gamut of initiatives to be able to train, to be able to connect, to be able to develop women employees are needed at different levels of the organization um, to be able to promote more and more women. It will just not happen on its own. I think it has
Right.
to be consciously done, and some effort around some of these things will actually help in reaping the benefits, because we all know how important this can be for the overall success of our organization.
Right, definitely agreed. So when we talk about work schedules, today women who are mothers or caregivers to the elderly at home, these industries, they demand work schedules which are not appropriate. Let's say they have to be flexible for women, especially. So how do you think the flexible work arrangements or policies can be put in place to accommodate the needs of employees, especially women who are caregivers?
That's a great question, Savi. I think I would say that I was going through a recent survey which said that almost 94% of respondents in that survey said that they would benefit if there is some work flexibility
Hmm.
provided to women, and uh, this is an important aspect. And organizations are increasingly viewing workspace flexibility and
Hmm.
breaks with a more open mindset, given the long-term benefits these have for both the employees as well as for the employers. And
Right.
especially after COVID, this has gone even more. This has gained even more importance because by offering these flexible work hours, employees can adjust their log in and log out schedules, to accommodate any personal commitments, and they necessarily need not take leave every time they have some small personal commitment. And
Right.
even child care or elderly care responsibilities, which many times the women employees have to take the load of taking some of these responsibilities more, are more easily manageable, and this provides them with the necessary flexibility to balance their work and caregiving responsibilities more effectively. So, providing these opportunities for these kinds of meaningful family touchpoints might prove to be the difference between an engaged employee and a highly engaged employee who is
Mm.
willing to go above and beyond the call of duty. And
Right.
therefore, allowing an employee to continue to work remotely, either at their own home or their elderly parents' home, can make a huge difference, and
Mhm.
that's very, very important. So therefore promoting this work life balance is an important aspect, because it helps to uh, bring in or retain people, and bring in more happiness and bring more engagement on the table for our people.
Definitely agreed, Mr. Sanjoy. I think post-COVID, especially employees, they want to be heard loud and clear today. They want their voices to be incorporated in the policies that are being made by the organizations. I agree with you on that. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the mentoring and the sponsorship programs. How do you think, what kind of mentoring or sponsorship programs should be put in place, and how do they encourage fostering a culture of inclusivity at organizations?
So it is very important to have mentoring and training programs. I think I talked about the Shift Up a Gear program, which actually prepares women to be able to get prepared for the leadership roles in the organization. And these kind of programs like Shift Up a Gear, or we have ADAPT program. ADAPT stands for is ADEPT, which is basically accelerate, development of employees, potential and talent. It includes mentorship programs. It includes providing access to interesting development opportunities, as well as guiding them on vacancies, and also explaining to them the key elements of the program.
Hmm.
The is very important, and we have all of these in place. And the career development of all these SUAG shift up a gear participants is very closely monitored by us, and we are able to in fact track it and monitor it and report it on a regular basis, so that there is enough seriousness with which these are done. And we are in fact quite focused on hiring more female employees in our operations,
Hmm.
because that's a commitment which is driven by closely working with the senior management through various culture building interventions. For example, programs like the Buddy program, which actually helps women employees to settle in the organization quickly
Hmm.
and faster, to understand the culture. Because first 6 months of a new joinee is very critical, and which is where I think the Buddy program comes in very, very handy. Uh, it really helps us. Besides that, programs like DHL for Her, DHL for All, and providing unconscious bias training, something that I talked about earlier, is very, very important to address, so that all unconscious biases that exist in the minds of our managers can be addressed more consciously.
Right. So, when we talk about a diverse workforce, do you think regional content is very important in today's date? And how have you incorporated it into your programs that you've mentioned?
So, be it any intervention, I think we have enough flexibility when it comes to adapting and adopting some of those programs as per the needs of our own culture, or as per the needs of our own organization. And while we may have directionally or content wise, a lot of support that comes in
Hmm.
from DHL globally, but we have at the same time a lot of freedom to be able to implement how we implement some of these programs.
Right.
Be it our training programs, be it our engagement programs, uh, the kind of interventions that we bring in, and the kind of focus through adopting an approach which is both practical, pragmatic, and also keeping in mind the cultural sensitivities,
Right.
goes a long way actually. And it is important to keep a balance, because many times what may work for one kind of a culture, or what one kind of a geography, may not necessarily work when it comes to our country, right? We have to be able to customize these initiatives and touch our people more sensitively in these areas. So therefore, it's very important to keep a very open and inclusive workplace, in order to be able to have these conversations with different line managers, because they have questions in their mind as to why do they need to hire more women,
Hmm.
and therefore those needs to be addressed, those needs to be talked about, and they cannot be brushed aside. While at the same time, we need to make sure that we have a very performance driven culture, where pay for performance and reward for results are the centered theme around which we are able to drive most of our organization related decisions, and they are not being driven based on any gender or
Right.
any other bias of any kind, be
Hmm.
it age related, be it any other bias that may creep in. So therefore, this is very, very important to address and focus on culturally, to be able to make sure that we are an employer of choice, and we are a great place to work.
So it's great to know that you have an open line of communication at all levels at your organization. So, Mr. Sanjoy, most of our viewers, they're employers, they're HR professionals and employees. What would be your last piece of advice to them?
No, the my only piece of advice is that keep an open mind, and there are lots of gains available when you focus on this area. And our women employees, we firmly believe that anyone can do any job, and but we have to correct our own internal systems, our own internal processes, to be able to make them more objective, so that and accommodative. I think creating right work environments, providing more flexibility is the order of the day for
Right.
seeing more and more women at senior levels and seeing them succeed and do well.
Thank you, Mr. Sanjoy. It was a very insightful discussion. Thank you so much for joining us today and giving us your time.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.